there, my name is Praise. I am the Community and Research Coordinator for Water Rangers. Water Rangers is a nonprofit and social enterprise that operates primarily in Canada, the US, and the UK, and we create really easy to use water quality monitoring equipment for community scientists, folks, organizations, honestly just anyone to collect water quality data. And we also host an open source data platform so people can upload that water quality data and contribute to filling data gaps and contribute to community science and environmental stewardship. In a typical week, I work 32 to 35 hours. So my work is quite flexible and my team is really good about being accommodating. So right now I actually work 4 days a week. I don't work Fridays. With the different types of events that we have, sometimes I might work a weekend, and then we just offset that accordingly. So that's pretty good. But yeah, that's what I work. Mondays to Thursdays between 8 till around 4:30, sometimes 5-ish, sometimes 5:30, depending on the amount of work. So I work remotely most of the time. Our team is across Canada, so I do work remotely. And on the days that I'm on the computer, it's doing a lot of different admin work, correspondence, working on different projects that might be going on. So whether it's creating different resources, educational resources, material, correspondence with other organizations, drafting, communications, different things like that. Other days, if I'm out in the field, which is really awesome because I like being able to have different aspects of that. If I'm out in the field, it might involve doing training. I work with different organizations, so if the organization's local to me, I might go out and do training with their staff on how to use our kits. If they're further away, I'll do a training online and hold like an online course or online session. Sometimes I might have workshops or different events, public engagement events. I might have a booth or a workshop with like youth or kids. Then I'm going to be out both in the field or indoors doing some water quality testing. And yeah, so my day-to-day, my work environment changes, which is what I love so much about my job. But overall, it might be working at the desk or working with people and engaging folks. So I studied finance and sustainable development as my undergrad, which is somewhat unrelated to the work that I do now, especially in community research, education, conservation. But I do think that my path towards getting to this role was pretty organic and just kind of bouncing around between especially with my sustainable development background, or that was actually a certificate that I did with my undergrad program. That has been a pretty good anchor for me and a good way that I've been able to combine with my education. So with business, it's more understanding, organizational development, what it takes to have a sustainable organization. And then sustainable development helps me underscore that with people and planet, which is all the work that I do and the purpose of the work that I want to do. So I think it's really about knowing your skills, knowing your background, and being able to frame it in the way to fit the role that you want to pursue. For instance, with my educational role, or when I started as an educational coordinator, they were really looking for someone who is really good at developing relationships with partners, doing some marketing, doing some strategy, because I started out actually working with Water Rangers and a partner, Ocean Diagnostics. So they came together to do kind of like a shared marketing partnership where we were working to offering our educational kits with their educational kits. So a lot of the work that I was doing was also strategy, and I was able to enter into that position with that experience, but then going more into education, learning, teaching, now community and engagement. That's been kind of the path that I've been able to move in that. And past roles I've had to have included public engagement, sustainability work as an intern in a for-profit company. So I've been able to kind of use that to come into this path and come into this role. One of the most important skills that is required is communication. So being able to articulate yourselves, articulate your thoughts, as well as communicate to a bunch of different audiences. Also with that is research. So having good research skills. As the community and research coordinator now, I do a lot of research on different projects and working with the different organizations. So being able to communicate that research effectively and to different types of audiences, whether it's the public or more professional audiences. Also, project management is really important. Knowing how to manage your time, knowing how to manage your resources, knowing how to coordinate and work with other people, so that collaboration aspect. And then lastly, doing education and being in teaching. Being a learner is just as important as being a teacher, knowing how you learn, how do you consume information, but then also how to reproduce that information to other audiences and other people and communicate that effectively. Water Rangers is a very collaborative organization. We work with nonprofits, indigenous groups, public, and I really just like the different types of relationships we're able to build and the different types of projects and programs and different types of things that I can contribute to the different programming that's going on. For instance, even the relationship that I have with Rare, with Istafa, I met Rare purchased some of our kits back in January, and we've been able to maintain that relationship. And now being out here in Ontario, I was going to Toronto and I was able to visit and check out the space and do this video. We also work with a lot of different indigenous groups, and I am really honored to do that kind of work and kind of facilitate this intergenerational knowledge exchange where we're offering these kits, these community science kits, and upholding these ideas of two-eyed seeing, where we're able to give these science kits and they're able to work with whether it's different guardian groups or youth groups and work with like their elders and their knowledge keepers. And then you actually have that exchange of knowledge where you're pairing these different types of information to get a more holistic perspective of what's going on in the ecosystem and the environment. So yeah, that's the kind of work that I really like doing, as well as like educating people, working with the public from 5-year-olds all the way to 65-year-olds. I get to work with so many different types of people and connect with them and have those relationships last for a while. So yeah. As a natural introvert, I find that sometimes connecting with so many different types of people can take a toll on me, especially in events like conferences. I go to a lot of different conferences, which is really important for making these connections and maintaining these relationships. But oftentimes, especially when it's like 2, 3, 4, 5-day conferences, and oftentimes I'm also, the only Black person there, sometimes the only person of color, more or less. So I do think that sometimes I can get in my head a little bit about that, but I do also find that people in the environmental sector are like really friendly, very kind, very accommodating. So I think that after making those relationships, and sometimes it does also feel like masking for me, like putting on this kind of persona to be friendly, and I do think I am a friendly person, but yeah, it definitely takes a toll. But managing my time after and taking that time to recuperate is really important. Also, working a nonprofit, we are often, at pretty high capacity or working at a very large capacity for a smaller team, and that can be draining sometimes because we have so many different types of projects going on. But the team is really supportive and we're really passionate about the work that we do, so it's all really worth it, and we're really good about managing our time. But it can be difficult to just allocate resources and time effectively for the different things that we have to do. Salary you can expect from around 21 to 25 an hour starting off, and kind of make your way up from there as you continue in the organization. Another thing to note is that often these roles are nonprofit, so you're expecting contract positions. Maybe it'll be like a 6-month contract or a year contract, and then as a nonprofit gets funding, then you could be expected to be kept on or maybe find a role elsewhere, especially for education coordinator, community coordinator, any kind of coordinator role. Yeah, I do definitely think it changes year over year, especially with nonprofit work. A lot of it is dependent on funding. A lot of it is contract work. So, within 6 months or a year, the turnover might change. So then you might have more positions open. Also depending on the seasons as well, like beginning of summer or more in the fall, there's quite a few more options. I would really recommend checking goodwork.ca, especially in Canada. That has a lot of different types of organizations, especially environmental organizations, and talking about it's a job platform that you can kind of seek different kind of opportunities on. So the work that I do specifically is a lot of education and community engagement. And I think, with teaching people about, we call it water, ocean, climate action. So about how that's all connected, also about our watersheds. A watershed is basically just, everyone, we all live on some piece of land, and the region that you live in, it all drains into a specific basin or river, which is your watershed, which ends up all, flowing into the ocean, our global ocean. And as climate change continues to happen and temperatures are rising and, there are more carbon emissions in the air, it's affecting things like our ocean. For instance, our ocean is, the ocean is one of the biggest or largest carbon sinks. So it collects carbon and it's causing ocean acidification. So that means that different parameters that we test for, like pH, we're able to tell people about how the pH reducing of the ocean is now affecting, like how our actions are affecting the ocean and how it now comes and affects us. And also with the work that we do, it's really important to fill those data gaps and do and engage in community science or citizen science. So that means that people are going out, they're testing the water, the water bodies, getting to, engage in that environmental stewardship, but also fill those really important data gaps, because you don't have to be a scientist, you don't have to wear, that white lab coat in order to engage in science. And we want to make that knowledgeable to everyone, that anyone can contribute to the science and to important research work that is going on, like for instance, like organizations at RARE, or other different types of organizations that are really doing important work to understand what's going on in our ecosystems, how human impacts are affecting the ecosystems, and what we can do to, combat that or address that. So we can't really do that without any kind of data, and the work that we do at Water Rangers is just one way to get a part of that data. I think my biggest tip would be get to know yourself. Honestly, we're all in this journey of self-discovery, trying to understand what we like, what we don't like, what our skills are. Do some self-reflection. What's your favorite class in school right now? Do you like art? Do you like math? Do you like science? If you're not into school right now, what is something that, actually makes you feel good? There's so many different kind of roles that's available. We don't all have to be scientists and like lab coats. If you like art, you can do more artivism, awareness, spreading awareness and also engaging with other youth or younger people about art. If you like working with people or educating people, you can go into education. If you like math, you can go into data and do some data science or collecting that kind of information. I think, especially as you start to know yourself and know your skills, you can start to be more confident in talking about your skills, especially to employers, because they're trying to get to know you as well, and they're trying to get to understand what you offer. I think also follow your curiosity. Oftentimes people say, follow your passions or follow your dreams. Maybe you don't have any. Maybe you don't have any passions. It's okay. I think, seeing what you're interested in or kind of what sparks your attention and then pursuing from there. And at the end of the day, if you pursue it, if you try to understand more about it, and you're not so interested, or you're not so curious anymore, you can go and follow the next thing that might spark your interest. And that way is a way that you can create an authentic path to yourself, for yourself, an authentic career path, and hopefully, find some fulfillment in that. So Water Rangers is a national partner of Ocean Week Canada. It is a nationwide celebration of the ocean and our connection to the ocean. Today is June 5th, so it's part of the ocean. We're in Ocean Week right now because World Ocean Day is on June 8th. And we have lots of different engaging activities. We'll be doing water quality testing throughout back in the West Coast as well as here in Ontario. We also have like a giant floor map because we work with the Canadian Ocean Literacy Coalition, so they're the ones that spearheads Ocean Week, and we work with them for doing a lot of different things, learning activities, engagement. You can go to www.oceanweek.ca to see how you can get involved. If you're watching this after Ocean Week, you can check it out for next year. But also with Water Rangers, if you go to app.waterrangers.ca, my bad, that is our data monitoring platform. So what I would recommend you do, go to our platform, you can see the map, zoom in to find where you're at and see if there's any pins there. If there's no pins at your closest water body, that means that there's no one that is monitoring that waterway right now. So please get involved. We have so many different types of kits. Our largest kit is our education kit. That's the one that I work with often because there's 3 sets of every tool, and people are learning about, I'm teaching people how to test for water quality. But even our tiniest kit is our tiny kit, and that has our thermometer and our test strips, so you can go out and use that. Or if you don't even have a kit, you can still go out because our data platform, you can take qualitative observations as well. So if you want to see any kind of ID, any kind of invasive species, or any kind of wildlife that you see, this is all really important information as well. And when you test regularly, or when you go out to monitor regularly, then you can actually see the change that happens over time. And it's almost like, befriending a water body and seeing that there's actually someone that's looking out, someone that's stewarding that water body in any way that you can. Here at RARE, you can actually get involved at the RARE Environmental Youth Network, and they use our water quality test kits to monitor the Grand River regularly. And they also actually have a group on our platform where they upload the data regularly, they connect it to the data stream, and you can see the baseline and how things change over time with the Grand River. So that's a really great way to get started if you're in Cambridge. Thanks for watching!